The roller coaster ride is over. The roller coaster ride that has been another West Virginia coaching search is over, and the West Virginia Mountaineers now have the 24th head coach in the men's basketball program's history. Mike Asti, there's Cody Nespor, WV Sports Now. All of our coverage has been there all day, from even before the announcement, but certainly after the announcement. We now are going to give you a live reaction show here, another live reaction edition of Mountaineer Report. But again, you can find all of our coverage at WVSN. And for every episode of Mountaineer Report, make sure to click subscribe, download, hit us up here on YouTube, but also find us everywhere you get your podcast by searching Mountaineer Report in your favorite podcast directory. So, of course, we're going to talk and react and maybe involve the fans. As I see many of you are already jumping on here. I kind of thought this would be lit up with the news of Ross Hodge leaving North Texas to become the West Virginia Mountaineers head coach. He does replace Darren DeVries after only 1 year. We know the story of his departure, and maybe not the sexiest name out there, but a connection to Wren Baker and somebody that's at least having success in the NIT right now, part of the NIT Final Four, even though not in the NCAA tournament. My thoughts have been out there, and I'm absolutely going to unleash here in a little bit because I got a lot to say on this. Cody, where do you stand? What's your initial reaction to it's Wren Baker's guy? It's his friend from years ago. He pulls back to the North Texas well, I guess, to avoid somebody doing him dirty, that if somebody's going to elevate themselves and leave for a job, you have to imagine a personal friend wouldn't do you as dirty. Maybe that's what Wren's going for, not that he's a bad coach. But what are your thoughts on Ross Hodge to West Virginia? That's a mouthful, we're going to have to say.
Oh, you muted me.
No, that was an accident. It was just for the intro. Go ahead. Now, Cody, with your thoughts. Give me the full thoughts.
I've got three thoughts. Really, I'll do two of them now, and then one a little bit later. Initially, just looking at Hodge, it feels early for him to get a high major job. It feels really kind of 2 years too early for it.
Right.
Because he's been around winning. It's well documented. An assistant coach under Grant McCasland at North Texas for a very good 6 years. He's had 2 good seasons as a head coach. You don't see a lot of times 2 good seasons get you that high major job. Ben McCollum did it with 1 good season, but he's got all the Division II success as a head coach. Hodge really, he's got 5 years in junior college, but that means nothing to me. Like, if you can't succeed in junior college, that's the bare minimum to be a basketball coach. So that really doesn't move me. But that's my biggest takeaway is it feels 2 years too early for Hodge. Making the NIT twice is good. Making a run this year is good. But I think you want to see a little bit more. There's not really a highlight win on his resume. There's not a conference championship. There's not an NCAA tournament appearance.
Right.
So the resume is just not there, right? It's not there, and you can't really spin it for this guy for it to be there. And my second thought is, I don't know the degree to which any of that matters. Because like you said, if Wren knows this guy, Wren has hired this guy before to be Grant McCasland's associate head coach.
Yeah, true.
And so if you're Wren Baker, if you know this guy, if you like this guy, if you believe this guy's the real deal and he's going to be a head coach someday and he's going to be a successful high major head coach, what does it hurt to go 2 years too early, right? It doesn't really, right? And so those are, like I said, 2 of my 3 thoughts to just get out.
It hurts if your job starts being on the line. We've talked. I mean, I like Wren, and I've been accused of being too much in favor of Wren over the years. I think Wren has done a great job, and he fits right in. He loves being there. I don't think he's going to do him dirty. I know for a fact he's turned down other jobs while being there, and he's had to deal with a lot. I think he's done a great job for what he's had to deal with, more than any other AD in the country really has had to deal with. But if football and men's basketball, it doesn't matter what women's basketball is doing, baseball, soccer, rifle, does not matter. I hate to say, if men's basketball and football do not click and start winning, eventually he will be out of work, especially with a new president there. And he even alluded to it in the last presser for before the search. He said, I'm the only one sitting up here. I'm always sitting here alone. Like, he knows. So I don't know if you can punt 2 seasons just figuring you won't have a guy leave and you don't want to do a search again. Because if they have that'd be 4 consecutive missed NCAA tournament appearances for a program that has within the top 25, actually, I believe top 20 most NCAA tournament appearances in history. They have, believe, 31 overall, and that is in that top 20, maybe a little outside. 4 straight for that number is bad on your watch, despite drama. I think he would be on the hot seat if that continued to go on. So it's a little bit of a risk there. And I guess this kind of segues, I'll just go now. I do think this is not a great hire. I'm willing to give him a shot. Obviously, I'm going to respect him when covering him. I want him to do well. I want to be wrong in all of this. But I'll give you what I know as a reporter first, and then I'll give you my full unleashed opinion. What I know as a reporter, and I already put on the site, I know there are donors who are upset with this hire. I know, Cody, and you kind of alluded to this, that maybe nothing of the resume, nothing of Ben McCollum, nothing of Calhoun. We've talked about the people to watch, whether it be, Mike Kazaza, Keenan Cummings, and myself and the newsbreakers. Maybe all the candidates we threw out there, this includes my colleagues, and maybe we all were way off, and Ren Baker was sitting there the whole time saying it's always going to be Ross Hodge because he won't leave me, and he always was the guy. That's a possibility. Maybe we all were totally wrong. I think we did a great job with the football search. Maybe we all sucked here. That could possibly be true. But if that's the case, that makes me understand what I'm hearing from donors even more, because donors feel like that is the case. They feel like there was misreporting. They're not even pleased with me, I'll tell you right now. They feel like they had the wool pull over them. They feel like that Ren Baker sat up there a week ago, Cody, in front of both of us, and I'm right there, and he knows who I know, and he said, we have a better, paraphrasing, we have a solid job. We have a top 25 job. He read off the resume of everything the program's done well before he even got there. He even threw a jab and said Indiana's a blue blood, but we've been to more NCAA tournaments and more Sweet 16s than them this century. He kind of threw that jab in there. He talked about how they're getting $6 million from Indiana, which is the largest buyout in men's history. It might even be more because DeVries left before April 30th. He talked about how that's going to be within these 60 days. It's not going to be spread out over years like some other coaches, and how they've had to fight that. No, this is going to come to them. He talked about how he said this, we are going to compete in the conference in the Big 12 and nationally on a financial basis because of the full rev share that's coming in, but also the $6 million, the improvement in NIL. Rich Rod talked the other day about how the NIL situation is better than what he even knew it to be before he was interviewing. He's already seen it better than what it was when him and Ren talked on the interview now, meaning money has come in. McAfee has talked about how he's donated multiple times in the last 6 months. And this does not just go to football, it goes to NIL. Everybody has been talking about how there's more money there, and what we know for a fact, even if they're trying to exaggerate, that $6 million from Indiana is coming in. That is factual money coming in that was not there before. They paid DeVries around $3 million, and they made money off the deal, even though they got kind of embarrassed with how that worked out, and they didn't want it to be only 1 year, but they made money in all reality. And yeah, Tucker DeVries you paid, but even if you make it $4 million to the DeVries family, you still made $2 million. So you have to imagine that this year, with the more money and the better situation and the brand that it is, and that it's still talked about nationally, and Fran Fischella can't stop talking about it and everywhere that he has an outlet, and you are now coming off of an NCAA tournament snub where even if people were upset about what the governor and attorney general were trying to do and thought maybe that was a bit too far, everybody from Stephen A. Smith to Mad Dog Russo to Cody Nespor and Mike Asti were saying they should have been in the NCAA tournament. Shannon Sharp thought they should have been in, and he's a North Carolina fan. They were getting full respect that they got screwed in that regard. And that goes from 9 wins to 19 wins in 1 year. Ren Baker talked about it again. It proved that you can turn this around in 1 year in this era, and they should have been a tournament team off that 1 year work when the year before was the interim coach, was off drama, and arguably the worst season in program history. And all of that led to a potential mirage search in which they arguably bring in the 7th best candidate in the pool. I totally get, Cody, if Ben McCollum maybe will sit there and say, okay, Iowa, you need to do better in NIL. It's national reporting. Their NIL spent even less than WVU. But I could get him sitting there and saying, I get all that, but it is still Big Ten. Maybe if the admin gets to work, and I'm already here in the state, that's a job I'm going to go to, fine. I could see Will Wade. I could see Nico Medved wanting to stay closer geographically. I could even see Richard Pitino wanting to go to Xavier, even though some think Villanova got snubbed, and even WVU, maybe you could argue, is a better job for sure. But I could see him sitting there saying, I kind of want to do what my dad's doing and be at a basketball school. All the money is going to go to basketball there. They're not worrying about football. I'd rather do that. I could see all of that. And maybe the landscape made all of that happen, and Ren had a worse situation off the landscape, even if his value and his job is better now in perception. And that led him to this hire here with Ross Hodge. And maybe he did all that work and then called Ross and said, okay, we got to do this. You're my friend. I'm going to elevate you. It's a little quick for you. There's pressure here, but you got to do this for me. And maybe also we talked about how, the one thing he has to achieve next year, forget the NCAA tournament, even though that's important, you got to get there every year at WVU, is not doing a search again. So maybe this is his way of being sure he's not going to do a search again. But Cody, last year, off of the worst season in program history and all the drama, and they were getting made fun of on national media, not supported, but getting made fun of, they got arguably the 2nd best coach in that market behind Asti May. Behind Asti, they got the 2nd best coach, right around the same timeline of a search. And then a year later, with a better season, a better brand, and the history being the same, and the jobs that are open with you are not better, and you end up with a coach that is not even just not a sexy hire. Part of why they put quotes from opposing coaches in the release, part of why the release was a Declaration of Independence manifesto, it was 2 pages freaking long, is because they know, and they thought a lot of casual fans don't even know who Ross Hodge is. They knew Darren DeFries because he was getting talked about and he was in the NCAA tournament. So to hire a coach where his first NCAA tournament appearance with you will be the first one of his life, to hire a coach that his best individual season at any level was in 2011, when we're sitting here in 2025, and you have a better job than others that are open, and your value supposedly better after you said you're going to compete nationally in the conference and you have more money, there's even more pressure now. And I don't think that smells good. I don't think that passes the sniff test. I understand if donors are mad and maybe they're still going to donate, but if they want to put pressure on and embarrass Ren Baker for 24 hours and make him sweat, I don't think that's a problem, because I do think this didn't go well as last year, regardless of whose fault it was. I don't think if you're settling on Ross Hodge, even if he's your friend, off of his resume, based on who else got hired and the other jobs open and your job, based on what you said, I mean, I like Ren Baker. I really, really do, as a person and as an AD. But I think part of my job and all of our job is to hold people accountable for what they say. And off of what he said, I don't think this is a good hire. Yeah. That's where I am right now.
Yeah, and I think a big, inarguably, it's not the best hire of the cycle, just based on resume and
100%.
What was out there. And I think the big question now is, where is this money going? Because you didn't spend a lot to buy him out. The early reports is he's going to make about what Darren makes, which I think is going to be too much for a guy with his resume.
I saw Hoppy's report, and I was a little surprised, because if I'm DeVries, I would almost be like, dude, my resume was better before I got hired.
I mean, the reason you get a guy like this is to kind of pay him at a discount and use it elsewhere. But even if it's at, like, the big question now is, where's this $6 million going, right? Like, his buyout maybe isn't even $1 million. That's the big question right now, right? Because you and I talked about this $6 million was a mighty weapon.
It's fact that's coming in.
Wield.
Right.
And looking at it now, it doesn't seem to have factored into this in any significant way. And that's, I think obviously the end all be all, Mike, is if he comes in and they win 20 games next year and are competing for the tournament, nobody cares about this anymore.
Donors will flood the money. They won't care. All of that will be fixed right away. But I do think, Cody, and this is the concern about a coach like this. And I get, obviously, DeVries was from a mid-major. I get elevating. I'm not saying you got to pluck a power four coach. That's not even what happens in this day and age. The other powers didn't do it either. And for 2 years now. But when you get a coach that's only really experienced NIT success, and we haven't even seen it finish as we're speaking at that level, he was an assistant when Ren got this job at WVU. That's how, few years he's been in North Texas, only 2 years as the head coach, and before that, the assistant. So you're not doing it on your own. Ren has said repeatedly he wants a head coaching experience. Maybe this bumped him over Jester Frazier or something like that, and maybe he could still keep Frazier on the staff because that would really help things. Maybe you give more money to assistants. We talked about that offer too, but you're not paying him the lower level offer that I was saying, that there's two offers. One is lower level, one is higher, and you can flood assistants kind of like with Rich Rod. Rich Rod's getting less than Neil Brown, but he has better assistants and he's paying them more and much more money for the staff and NIL, but he's taking less. This looks like Hodge is taking the same, if not more, with a worse resume. So if you lose Chester Frazier, if you don't get dominant assistants, if he just brings North Texas all to WVU, whether it be players and staff, I think that's a major concern, because where I'm going with this is, Cody, and Ren Baker knows this. He's not from WVU, but he's not an alum. He's not from the state, but he knows these fans now. I'm sure he does. And he knows, and I'm sure he told Ross, because he tells this to every coach that's getting, I even joke that maybe he tells them too much. He knows you got to know the football, the fishbowl atmosphere that is on more than just football. It is certainly all over the place, but people 3 hours away are going to stop you at a gas station and ask you how the Mountaineers are doing. And if they're doing poorly, they're going to tell you to F off. That is the reality. That really goes beyond the state. I mean, there's Kentucky, Pittsburgh. You're going to get that all over the place. You got to kind of know the region. And separate from all of that, he's never faced this kind of pressure before. You could argue that Darren DeVries at least did, because Drake was a perennial tournament team. Even if they weren't getting tournament wins, he had pressure to at least keep that going. There is really no pressure that Ross Hodge faced at North Texas. I get you want to win, but you're resurrecting nothing. If you even flirt with the NIT, they're not going to fire you. I don't think he's ever had a scenario where he loses a rivalry game, and obviously no one should do this, and I'm not in any way advocating for it. It is ludicrous, but I don't think he's ever had an experience of losing a rivalry game and then having to pull up social media and see anger and venom in his direction. I don't know if his family's felt that before. I don't know. I mean, if he has a 5-game losing streak, he's going to feel uncomfortable going to the movie theater. That is not good. I'm not saying it's acceptable, but just ask Neil Brown about that situation. He's never felt that before. This is a high-pressure job with history attached to it, and the fact there's not a pro team there in the state, even if a lot of them are Steeler fans or Bengal fans for the NFL, whether it be North or Southern West Virginia, there's no one in there that represents West Virginia on their chest in the major pros. WVU is that team, especially football and men's basketball. And I don't think the press conference can be, we're going to build, we're going to trust the climb, give us time. It's a program builder. I'm feel for that's going to be the terminology. Program builder will probably be what Ren Baker is going to say, that he helped build a program. I am telling you, Cody, and I said this to other fans, as much as I rag on some of the fans, and I do think a lot of West Virginia fans go too far. I think the passion goes too far at times. I face death threats myself for reports. I can't imagine what coaches get. I think the fan base runs amok sometimes. But in all reality, the West Virginia fans are some of the most loyal in the country, in all of sports, are some of the most passionate, a lot of that in a good way. And as much as maybe some don't like that there are, so many content creators and non-media members trying to get in the mix, that's a good thing for the fan base. That's why I've accepted many of them. That they're so rabid, they're so into it. Many of them are trying to cover this and doing the work that we're doing totally for free, just because they're interested in it. Not many programs have a fan base doing that. They're one of the most active on social media. They are just a really rabid, but a really good fan base. It's what you want. When you win, you're God. When you lose, they're going to hate you. That's just the way it is. But they're that passionate, and they're that much of a rabid fan base. And I am not sure he's ever dealt with that. He's aware of that. And I don't think this is a job that you can, whether it's fair or not, Cody, you can't do the build thing for years when your AD a week before you were hired comes out there and says, DeVries proved we can do this in 1 year. We should have been in the tournament. We have the 31 tournament appearances, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eights. We got more than Indiana since 2000, the Final Fours. This regime in terms of the administration was a part of deciding to claim a national title from 42 that wasn't there when I was a student. These people are doing that, and then they're going to give me a coach who wants to build and maybe is punting a year or two because he got to build. I don't think you can do it. I'm sorry. This fan base remembers what is said. They remember what Ren Baker says, maybe more than other fan bases remember what an AD said. They're going to throw it all back at him, and as much as these fans love him, they will turn on him if this does not go well. And this is a gigantic risk, and I just wonder how much he tried to pitch the job, or he was always in on Ross Hodge, or he got turned down repeatedly because of circumstances he couldn't control, and then that sucks. But this is just not the win it was last year with DeVries, to me.
Yeah. And you make the point, Mike. Like I said, if he comes in and wins 20 games next year, nobody's going to care about, how they felt this week. If he comes in and it's 15 wins or fewer, he's not going to, if it was Ben McCollum coming in and he wins 15 games,
they would trust him more.
There's some grace there because, and this goes against what I've been saying. I've been telling people don't be afraid to learn new names, but with a McCollum, it's like, because he was the big name this cycle, he gets some leeway, fair or not. It's not fair to Ross Hodge. But that's just the reality of this. That's the reality of a coaching search like this and making a hire like this. You've got to win, right? Because you can't, especially now if everybody's going to doubt, right? If the fan base isn't going to dive right in with both feet and there is going to be doubt about this guy, if you don't win right away, it's ugly. It's just ugly. And I think it could. We at Ren's press conference, there was some talk about how do you keep the momentum going because this was such a good year. Year one, how do you keep that momentum going? It feels like that momentum's done with a hire like this.
I think so.
All the players are gone. If Chester Frazier isn't on this staff, all the players gone. Frazier's back. Maybe Sincere and Amani do come back, but it's a restart. It's a hard restart, which people didn't want, but it hard to avoid when your coach leaves. And it's even the natural comparison here, Mike, is Mark Kellogg, right?
Sure.
The parallels are impossible to ignore. And I have a story about it that I believe we're going to put out tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Ren loses a coach after 1 year, Don Plitzweit, Darren DeVries. He turns to somebody he already knows, somebody he's already worked with, Mark Kellogg, now Ross Hodge.
It does make sense a little bit. The difference in his position, to be fair, but yeah.
The difference is Mark Kellogg had 8, I think even more, really, really, really successful years in Division.
He was in the tournament with Stephen. He was in the NCAA tournament. He took them to the NCAA tournament,
100%. And so when he was hired, it's women's basketball, so it's a little bit less. But still, nobody knew who Mark Kellogg was, right? People wanted Kim Stevens. People wanted, Kim Caldwell. Now people wanted, Mike Carey to come back in there. Who's this Mark Kellogg guy? But then you look at his resume and you're like, oh, okay, this guy's really good.
That calmed down quickly once he started winning too, which is part of it. He started winning right away.
He's obviously come in and had 2 extremely good years. And now, he's gone from a guy nobody knew and to people are scared to death that he's going to be the next to leave.
Right.
Ross Hodge, like I said, nobody knows his name. You look up his resume, there's not a lot there. So he doesn't get the grace even a Mark Kellogg was getting from the fan base.
And
so it's if you don't have Kellogg that immediate,
I was just going to say, part of what he did was what you just said isn't going to happen now. Mark Kellogg's first order of business was, I see the progression here. I'm going to convince JJ Quinterly to stay. She did stay. They added transfers. They built around her. She became a legend who's on the women's basketball Mount Rushmore, which is, by the way, what Kellogg was talking about. In fact, we were arguing about whether that's the whole program history of 250 years is just ludicrous. But nonetheless, she became that because she decided to stay and he sold her the vision. Credit to him. There's no one like that for Ross Hodge to sell. Those players were Javon Small, who's out of eligibility, and Tucker DeVries, who's going with his dad. Even if Sincere Harris stays, and I like him as a guy, these are role players. Hansberry maybe is a little bit above, but probably still a role player. Andre's a role player. Even if you get them to stay because you're keeping Chester Frazier, which I can't guarantee to anybody right now, or even Nelson Hernandez, who clearly wants to stay. If you go to his Twitter account, he wants to stay. Even if you somehow sprinkle in and start keeping them, because Cody, it does not look like DeVries is keeping them. I mean, they're all about Morgantown and don't seem in any way going with DeVries. So if they got screwed too and you want to keep them, fine. But there's not that one singular player to elevate and build around that would bring in recruits, because here's the issue, and it's different with women's basketball as well. But if recruits in the women's game were not following Stephen F. Austin, very possible, and they didn't know who Mark Kellogg was, but okay, wait, JJ Quinley is going to stay? We watched her film. We know a little bit about her. She was in the NCAA tournament already, even under another coach. Now we'll come aboard to play with JJ. If a recruit doesn't know who Ross Hodge is, and then there's no player they know on the team, yes, Ren Baker could also get on the phone and say, do you know we've been in 31 NCAA tournament appearances and that's 20th all time? You know what a kid's going to say? I don't care. What are you going to do next year? How much money are you going to pay me? And who's going to coach this team now? I don't care about Jerry West, Bob Huggins, and John Beeline. I need to know what's going on now. And I don't know if they can be sold by next year and what's going on now. DeVries sold those kids, not only partly because of him, but he was bringing Tucker with him. So he was able to, Javon Small talked about it earlier in the season. He was sold by coming to play with Tucker. It didn't work out, obviously. They only played 8 games together, but that was part of the sales pitch. Play with a coach or a player or money. West Virginia does have a little bit more money now. And as we've said, if you're not spending it on the staff and the coach, and maybe who knows what they'll do with the rest of the money outside the head coach, but maybe you can put it in football. Maybe you can, give it to these players. Maybe you can build up the player realm. Sure. But the sales pitch is just not as good as it was last year with DeVries and Tucker coming. Just not as good. You didn't do as well in the search. The national perception isn't as good. And Cody, I got to be honest too. I think even the way this was handled screams to me that West Virginia is telling on themselves that they know this was not going to be perceived positively. This was out there for hours and they didn't want to confirm. Okay, number one. Number two, I'm pretty confident that part of the reason why there was some dragging, they were waiting for legit quotes from national people to put a part of the release. Not only was the release 2 pages long, but there were a quote from Dusty May, a close friend of Ren Baker that he's admitted and we know for sure is a close friend. Scott Drew, who's the Big 12 czar, basically, with Huggins retiring. He's that Hall of Fame coach there with the national title that I wouldn't even be surprised if Brett Yormark doesn't tell him, hey, send a text and help them out. Texas A&M is kind of a similar situation. And Fran Fischel, they copied it from Twitter, and obviously he loves them. They wanted those in the release. They didn't just give you a paragraph with here's what he did and then a quote. It was paragraph, 3 or 4 deep in that announcement. They gave you a graphic or two, and yes, there's some quote graphics, but they didn't do the Rich Rod thing where there was graphics, there was video where McAfee's talking about it. Yes, McAfee talked to LeBron and it was a big deal. He didn't mention this at all. I probably don't even think he knows who Ross Hodge is. He talked about it last year when it was the basketball circuit with DeVries, even though he was a football guy. I'm just saying that West Virginia clearly, Cody, cares about winning the press conference and winning the announcement, and they didn't. And I know they tried, but I think they sat there and said, we're taking a gamble here. We don't want to go through a coaching search again. We're going with Ren's guy. We're probably fooling some people. We know donors aren't happy. We know fans aren't going to be happy. Maybe they'll be convinced if Dusty May is saying it's a good coach or Scott Drew is saying it's a good coach. We got to have all these in the announcement. Those quotes we got from Dusty May last year with DeVries, Cody, you were standing there. It was after the presser. We're in a scrum, and Ren Baker says, here's what Dusty May said, and shows you his phone. It isn't like this. He wants the fans to see it in the initial release because he knows they don't know who this coach is, and they're going to be mad because they don't know this guy. I'm just saying that there are so many things to read into this that I think the program's uncomfortable with this hire, and I don't think it was a home run hire by any means. And maybe it'll work. Again, I want to be fair to him. It's not his fault that I'm ranting like this. He could be a great coach. If I'm him, to be clear, and WVU calls me and says, do you want to come aboard? I'm not saying no. It's not his fault he's getting offered this job. He should certainly take it. If I'm him, I take it for half the price that they're paying me. It's amazing he's getting that much. So kudos to him. I guarantee you, if you would have asked him 3 years ago when the AD he's friends with is leaving and he's going from assistant to the head coach with no head coaching experience at that level, if you would have told him you're going to be at WVU in 3 years, he would have been dancing for joy. So nothing against him. But again, there's no time to wait here. There's no program building here. And as much as there normally isn't for West Virginia basketball, Cody, which we're not even talking about yet, but this is part of it. And again, this part's not fair to Ross Hodge or Ren Baker either. But this is now coming after a coach leaves you after one good year. This is now coming after an interim coach that we could argue is the worst season in program history of over a century. This is coming after your Hall of Famer coach tainted the end of his career and you had to unceremoniously exit the program. This is coming after the football program's experienced the worst 6 years since before Don Nalen on record. And again, I like Brown, but that is a fact that even he knows. And they haven't been AP ranked in those 6 years. And now Rich Rod's back, but there's pressure on him too. The fan base, they love the overall athletic program being good. But if men's basketball and football are not good, they're not happy. And there are some people, like it or not, that only care about those two. So those two haven't been good or good enough. There was 2003 with football and there was last year with basketball, but not good enough. And you can't just keep on telling these people to wait. You can't. I don't think they're going to be sold by DeVries screwed us, Huggins screwed us. We have more money, but we weren't in Iowa for McCollum. Give us time. I don't think the fan base has any patience left at all. And I get it. I at this point, I get it. I barely have any as a media member. So that's all on the back of Ross Hodge and Ren Baker right now. That's all on their shoulders, and it's a heavy load.
Yeah, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here, Mike.
You're welcome to. I thought you'd like this more than you've said you liked it so far. By the way, expecting you to like it.
Just to be fair to Ross Hodge, I will.
Okay.
I will sing his praise a little bit, and you might think in the middle of this, "Hey, Cody, these aren't extremely strong arguments." Well,
okay.
The numbers for Hodge, I told you the resume is not there. He's only been a head coach 2 years. He's never made the tournament. Blah blah blah. The numbers on Hodge's teams are extremely good. One of the best defenses in the country, both of his years as a head coach and as his time and as the associate head coach. And it sounds like he was the defense coach under Grant McCasland. So the defense numbers on paper, this is one of the best defensive coaches in the country. And to do it at North Texas, they were top 3 in scoring defense this year in the nation. At North Texas, a school with no resources, if we're being honest. So the numbers are great. If those numbers translate to the Big 12, even, you imagine it's harder in the Big 12, so they're not going to be as good. But if they translate at an acceptable rate, you're sitting pretty good with this guy. Two, Grant McCasland got hired at Texas Tech. He's done very, very well in 2 years. He's kind of done what Mark Kellogg has done, right? In the tournament 2 years, a lot of wins, that kind of stuff. In the Sweet 16 right now, right?
I mean, he was ranked in the top 10 at one point. He was ranked number 9 as high as that this year. So yeah.
So, if you say, well, this guy's Grant McCasland's protege, if he ends up being Grant McCasland, that's a pretty good hire too. Right. Sure. And then 3, and this was my third initial reaction that I talked about in the open, Mike. There was a not insignificant amount of this fan base that was, for some reason, banging the table for Chester Frazier. I'm sure you saw it, Mike.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Even players were. I mean, Sincere Harris wanted Frazier. That was out there, 100%. I mean,
John Flowers.
He wanted Frazier. Yeah. I love Flowers, but he wanted Frazier. Yeah.
So the people that wanted Chester Frazier, this guy is Chester Frazier 2 years from now, right? Because 2 years ago, he was Grant McCasland's associate head coach, a guy who clearly was thought of as a future head coach, just like Frazier is right now. He's gotten his chance 2 years, 2 good years at UNT. Now he gets to move up. That's really the path Chester Frazier could take. Like if Frazier gets one of these open mid-major jobs and has 2 good years, he could be a high major coach then, right? And it's so if you were banging the table for Chester Frazier, like I said, this guy's just him 2 years from now. So
you know how fans work, though. If Frazier does that 2 years from now and then has success, the fans are going to say you missed out on Chester Frazier. Because I think he would have stayed and taken the job too. Right now, obviously, it's WVU.
Yeah, so that's my.
Like it, but yeah,
that's me playing devil's advocate.
No, it's good for the show.
One more, if you're looking at North Texas's roster and like, oh, maybe he'll bring a bunch of gangbusters here with him. It's a really old roster. It's a lot of seniors. I don't think, maybe a few guys. It's not going to be, a whole starting 5 of guys that are going to come in and kill it. A lot of them are graduating, right?
Sure.
So anyway, that's if we're making
kind of ruined it there at the end, and you're
I know.
but yeah, see that was my point. Like DeVries brought Tucker, and he's going to bring Tucker again to Indiana. Like that's part of it. If you're not a coach that's a big name, and you could argue DeVries was a bigger name in that market, but it's not like he's a Hall of Famer. But he had his son who was an NBA prospect. If you bring that player, either players want to play for the coach, they want to play around that player, or obviously money. And West Virginia may have more money now, but they're certainly not just going to make it rain for players. That can't be the only reason why they're getting anybody. They're not going to do that, or then they'll go broke and get in money mess like they were in years ago. And there's certainly programs with more NIL money. It's not like they're sitting there rich NIL-wise, even with more money coming in. So they can't do that. They now don't have a coach that's known. He has no players he can really bring. There's no players that he even had that are known. Like he can't point to a player and say, I put him in the NBA. That's not something that he can say. That's the only advantage of Chester Frazier. And I'm not saying I wanted him because without a head coaching experience, it's also a big risk. I would think this job you can get better than even Chester Frazier, even though I like him and he's a great recruiter. And I think he'll be a future head coach. But he can point to players even at Illinois and say, hey, I won a conference title. And then this guy had a great pro career. Like he can already do it. And he partly recruited a lot of those guys, even though he wasn't the head coach. Even when he was an assistant, there's really no one that Ross Hodge can point to. So again, and we're never going to know this answer because Ren's not going to admit this. He's a great politician. Again, I like him a lot, but he's going to do the AD thing, and no AD would admit this. But if Ren Baker was sitting there for all 8 days of this, all 8 days, and in the back of his mind was thinking, yeah, Ross Hodge, like, Calhoun, Ross Hodge, like, McCollum, like, yeah, I'll call you, but like, Ross Hodge is my guy. Then I think there's a little disservice done here, and I think he better freaking win right away. Because you also can look at this money, Cody, and here's something that is not reporting, is not sourcing, and is not even up for debate. People thought, and this was the national perception, and I will even say, I think Goodman's a great reporter. He's up there nationally, but I think he got this wrong too. The second Calhoun went back to Utah State, Goodman's first words were, how did West Virginia mess this up? And then you saw in his thread he was talking about money. I'm telling you, if you look at Calhoun's contract, that is factually wrong. Calhoun agreed to an extension that is paying him less than $2 million a season. He is agreeing to an extension, I repeat, that I believe 1.85, below $2 million. DeVries made 2.85. Josh Eilert made 1.5 as an interim with no head coaching experience. Again, Josh Eilert made 1.5 as an interim. This guy, Ross Hodge, is now going to make around 3 from what we're hearing. They are paying other people, even when the money was bad, around the same number or now more. Clearly, you don't got to know anything else to know Ren Baker did not want Calhoun. If he did, he would have offered him more money, and there's no way you're going to convince me that Calhoun would have turned down an extra $1 or $2 million a year for his family to go to a Power 4 job that he previously coached at. That doesn't make sense. It never would have happened. They didn't mess it up. They either lowballed him or did not want him. He's getting less than Ross Hodge at WVU right now, and his resume is better than Ross Hodge. I'd be mad at my agent. So there's no, again, you could argue money last year. You could argue perception off the bad season. And certainly the money was in the drain 2-3 years ago. But this search, Ren Baker, did he not make it clear we were going to compete in the conference and nationally on a financial basis? Where is that?
Yeah.
Where is that? You cannot sit on that money and fix Shane Lyons' mess. That better not be what's going on. You got to use it for the search. He even said, I'm going to use most of it for the search. We'll see what the staff gets paid. That'd be the highest priced staff in America if he does that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm skeptical that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I said. I think the biggest question, I think the two biggest questions to ask Ren at the press conference will be, how early did you identify Ross as your guy, right?
Yeah.
And if he says, well, what did he? I talked to you guys Wednesday. I knew Ross was the guy Thursday. We were just waiting for the NIT stuff. Then it's like, okay,
okay,
sure.
Man, you're tied to this dude. Then right.
And then the second question is, where's all this money going, right? It would be a tough pill to swallow if it's just like, well, we're putting it in the rainy day fund. It's tough.
I mean, maybe you're putting in football because we know that Rich Rod's going to go try to get 10, 15 more players. He literally said half a dozen at minimum. Like he wants about, anywhere from 12 to 15, certainly at least 6. He wants a lot more players in the portal. He's going to cut players. That's coming up. So maybe they're going to try to spend it in football. I'm not saying they're going to sit on it. I'm not reporting that, but I'm just saying that I honestly will say this too. Even if they put it in football, and this isn't as bad, but Cody, I could argue there's a little lying still. He said we're going to use most, if not all, for the basketball search. He did not say we're going to keep it and put in football. I hear what the man says. I'm right here.
Yeah. So that's what the staff ends up getting paid as part of this, and then I think one thing that I think fans would really like if he turns around and uses a portion of this to extend Mark Kellogg.
Okay.
I think people would be on board with that. But also, Mike, I think it's not a good sign you and me are having to go through hypotheticals of ways to use this money to make people happy when the obvious choice was just use it on this search and hire.
That's how you make people happy. That's how you make them happy. And you know what I want to, because part of saying this too is I want the fans to understand that there are going to be people that are nationally or locally that are going, they're going to do this because this is like the clutch that they live on. And it was true for a while, but it's not anymore. They're going to say, well, West Virginia just couldn't financially afford any other coach. That is just Ren. If that is true, then we were told a bill of goods at the press conference. But that can't even be true because the fact of it is Darren DeVries buyout, because of when he left, what he was owed, and that situation brings in over $6 million. So the NIL bank could be zero. And I could still argue they could have got a better coach on a buyout because $6 million allows you to get a head coach salary, the staff. Figure the staff is like $1 or $2 million overall on a normal staff. The head coach is normally around 2.5 to 3. So if you're at 5 there, I mean, most of these buyouts are, you don't have to, you could say, okay, Richard Pitino's out or some people, maybe McCollum's out, but they had enough money to pay a bigger buyout than what they're paying, I guess. Like the Ross Hodge buyout, they almost didn't even need the Indiana money for that buyout. So again, every single time, Cody, if you remember, that was always said about there were comments even a week before Neil Brown was fired in which there were comments in which somebody said they don't have enough money. It'll take them 2 years, even if they lose every game in the world. This is basically paraphrasing what was said. The next week, Ren Baker laughed and said, hold my beer. We're going to fire him. We're going to be fine on the buyout money. The donors, of course, stepped up. And then we're going to move on. We're going to pay Rich Rod. We have more NAL coming. We're going to pay Zach Alley, Larry Porter, like we're making it rain on assistant coaches. We have more assistant coaches than ever before. And other people are donating, and there's more in the NIL bank than there was there. And I'm not saying there's enough there. It's not good, but there's more than the 3.5 Brown had to deal with. And the answer of, oh, they just couldn't afford anybody else but Ross Hodge, that is just lazy and just wrong off of what we've been told. And there are going to be people that maybe do not follow digital media, do not watch YouTube shows, do not listen to podcasts, do not follow WV Sports Now. I'm not naive. I'm sure there's 50% of the fan base, despite the numbers we do, that are maybe older, that just don't even know who Mike Kazaza, Keenan Cummings, and Mike Asti even are. They're following the mainstay legacy reporters. And they're great, and they're Hall of Famers, and good for you. But the truth is being told to you right now. So I just hope that there was not any of that going on. Again, I do not think Ren Baker's the type of guy that would try to fool anybody. I do think he's a great person in addition to having been a solid AD. And to respond to people in the chat there, because I see a lot of people are saying, what has Ren done? All that. Ren Baker's had to deal with a lot. He had to deal with a Hall of Fame coach torpedoing his career right early on his tenure. He had to deal with Don P. leaving women's basketball and then lying about it and having news broken right in his face in a press conference that he didn't want to have to do. He had to deal with Neil Brown and billboards. He had to deal with down periods in major sports. He didn't get to do this in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. He's doing this now. Like, if you put him 20 years ago, maybe they win a national championship at that point. Like, I think he's a great AD, and I think he'll be at USC or at Ohio State someday if he wants to be there. But his career is on the line too. If he ever wants to get there, he got to have success now. And there is politician in him, and as there would be with any AD. But I think he cares about the state and the fan base too. I think he has sleepless nights if they're not winning. I really think he wants that. But this is just, I'll say this again. I want to be wrong, and I want Ross Hodge to have success. As much as I'm trying to be an impartial media member, I am an alum. I want them to win. It's more fun to cover a winner, if nothing else. But I'm an alum, okay? I don't want to see the program made fun of nationally. I try to correct things because I care about whether it's just totally being made fun of on things that are wrong. That is the point. I want this to work out. I want to be wrong. But this is truly the first time, Cody, that a decision that has been made by Ren Baker, I am worried could sink him. I did not think that even with Rich Rod. Because there's so much fanfare that if you lose, I don't think people will blame necessarily Ren, because everyone loved the hire at the time. They might blame Rich Rod more. Obviously, the other ones are different scenarios, but this could ruin it. I mean, this really is such a big time hire, especially off of what he said, that fans are not going to forget. There is a contingent of the fan base that are allowed, whether you want to say minority or majority, that will never forget what is said to them. And if you say something, you better mean it. And so far, I think there's reason to question if what was said is what happened. That's the thing.
Yeah. And it's, I don't think that's, I think Ren's kind of made his bed in this one. And, but, he's comfortable lying in it. Like you said, he kind of mentioned that at the press conference. Like, he knows it's his job on the line. So, I don't think it's unfair to say that. I don't think it's I mean, even in this statement we got from Hodge, like he said, I think we're going to compete for Big 12 championships and yada, 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 stuff new coaches always say. You're never going to get hired and say, man, this place is tough.
I mean, DeVries had a great intro presser, and obviously that didn't work out because he left after a year. So,
well, it goes down better when you're like, hey, the Missouri Valley Player of the Year is coming with me.
Well, that's true. No. I mean, that was a good press conference. He read off the history, and it sounded like he was excited. But yeah, I think Ross Hodge is going to say, I trust Ren trusts me. We won. I know, I'm going to prove. I think maybe he'll even give some of the, I'm going to prove any doubters. It's kind of the Rich Rod thing, even though obviously he's not having to apologize for screwing anybody over in the past. But I'm going to prove you wrong. Like, Ren might even help him write something. Like, Ren knows the fan base. I am sure they're going to win the press conference. I am sure. And Cody, I already had some fans that were agreeing with me initially that then have already texted and said, well, are you so sure? Because look what Dusty May said. Look what Scott Drew said. Like, they know what they're doing. They put those quotes in there for a reason. They're trying to say, okay, you don't know Ross Hodge, but you know Dusty May. And if Dusty May says it's a slam dunk, like there were even comments like, oh, someone was going to hire him. I'm sure someone would. You know when? 2 years from now, maybe next year at the earliest. Here's another thing that always gives me pause. You knew with DeVries, it was a fact. It was even said at the press. Actually, John Antonic works for the program, Hall of Fame, writer, wrote books, comms guy. I had him on my Trib show years ago. I consider him a friend. He actually brought this up. And at the DeVries press conference, because I went back and watched it the other day, Darren, you had other options. Everyone knows it. Why West Virginia? And then he gave a heartfelt speech, and obviously he didn't mean it because he left after a year. Ross Hodge, did he have other options? That's the thing. If this West Virginia job did not come open because of DeVries, if Ren Baker did not come calling, did he have other options, or would he be coaching North Texas tomorrow? And I think we all know the answer. That gives me pause too. If you're dating a girl or dating a guy, or if you're hiring a coach, yeah, you don't want anyone else to go after them and you don't want them to cheat on you. But there's also part of you that's thinking, okay, if this guy's trying to flirt with my girlfriend, that's an ego boost because I know that she's attractive. She's a commodity. Like, I got the right girl. If somebody else who's single maybe would want her. And I'm glad that she doesn't go anywhere, even though, DeVries obviously did, just for that example, for anybody, in a relationship there or marriage. But now you're in a scenario here with Ren Baker and Ross Hodge that who's trying to date Ross Hodge but you? Just you. Yeah. Just you. That gives me some concern. It's like just you. Iowa didn't want him. Minnesota didn't want him. I think West Virginia is a better job than those schools, but they didn't want this guy. There's no reporting that they wanted this man.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying that at all.
I think it's kind of funny. This is a move. If it works out, Ren kind of looks like a genius, right? Where it's like,
that's true.
He got this guy, he was in on this guy early, right? He didn't get in a bidding war for Ross Hodge. He got him early before everybody else. But it's a big if, right? And it's, we keep saying it's the if that can get Ren fired, right? Rich Rod is the if that can get Ren fired, right?
Sure.
These are the kind of the big swings you got to. Hodge isn't a big swing, right? He's right. It's one of these things like.
It's like a bunt.
It's not right. It's not
punted just to get on.
On paper, it's not high risk, high reward. It's sort of like, low risk. That's the kind of what this move
I think Rich Rod is high risk, high reward because
absolutely
he at least has a resume. He won before. National media just loves it. He's done more interviews than anybody in the country. You're going to get tons of fanfare. You're going to sell. Here's the difference too, Cody. Even if he doesn't win right away and then fans turn, the first year, you're on the pace to break the record for season tickets. So you're going to get money. This could cause people to have you get less money because I've already heard from friends who are all fellow alums that have families with season tickets saying they're considering canceling. So you could lose season tickets off of this hire versus Rich Rod, you're gaining some. There's at least intrigue there, and there's a resume there, and there's a lot. The national media is going to want to have national TV games to see what Rich Rod's doing. I mean, obviously, WVU as a brand is going to get on national TV, but I cannot imagine ESPN is going to be knocking the door down saying, we got to go cover Ross Hodge every day, or CBS, or Fox, or whoever. It's not the same. This, I could argue, is a riskier play than Rich Rod, because at least Rich Rod will bring you money up front, and if it goes poorly, I think people might turn on Rich Rod more than Ren Baker. This, I think the venom action would go more to Ren because, as I said earlier,
it looks like he hired his buddy.
It looks like he hired his buddy. And I think if you want to be real, people are going to say, well, yeah, Ross Hodge can't turn down the job, but Ren shouldn't have offered it to him. Like, I mean, if he called me and said, I'll make you the best basketball coach for $3 million, I would take it as well. And I don't coach basketball. But like,
I kept telling people, offering it to me. I kept telling, anytime anybody was like, oh, so worried about, McCollum gets hired, Medved gets hired, Cody, who's going to coach? I'm like, all right, I'll do it. I'll bite the bullet.
We'll do it together. You want to split the money? We'll just do it together. Co-coach. We'll do co-head coach. Yeah, we'll do that.
You know what's funny, Mike, is, I drove back up from North Carolina yesterday.
Right. Yeah, thank you. You did a great job covering the women's tournament, by the way. I
had a great time. That's a 7.5-ish hour drive. Yeah. I got back here right around dinner time. I was exhausted. I'm sure. You know what I was lying in bed last night thinking? I was like, I'm so excited. I'm just going to have a nice lazy day tomorrow, right? Like, I'm going to go get some groceries. I'll watch some TV. I won't have nothing to worry about. And then as I'm at the grocery store, what comes through?
Well, I will say I kind of did think, I didn't think I put it in the group text that I was pinpointing Wednesday. So like, I've been wrong a lot, but like I got Wednesday. So like, I don't, you took a little gamble there. You were like, Mike's been wrong in the previous report. He's not going to be right on this. Like, I'm going to go to the grocery store, and then Mike hits. Yeah. So like, I mean, we couldn't linger too much, but yeah.
So one thing, you mentioned this a little bit earlier that I did want to talk about is, kind of in retrospect, it's interesting to we could kind of see all the dominoes fall as this happened, right? It's like Right, McCollum goes to Iowa, Medved goes to Minnesota. The big domino is Calhoun stays at Utah State, right? Like you mentioned, like that doesn't happen if the WVU job is offered to him.
There's no
And
way.
then,
I mean, the money, if he was getting paid, like he didn't even break, he did not even break the record for the conference. He got the second most extension in the conference.
So then, like we see all those dominoes fall in real time. And then the big one for me yesterday was Sincere goes in the portal.
Yeah.
No, Amani goes in the portal yesterday. This morning, Sincere goes in, and
they knew
that's
Frazier
when
wasn't getting it. Yeah,
It's like Red obviously told Frazier yesterday he wasn't getting it, and so these guys get. So it is interesting. There's very clearly dominoes that fell,
and then even the Richard Pitino thing, I didn't think that was ever really legit.
Yeah,
but like that was out there. And the only weird thing about that is, Cody, the only weird thing about this is, and this is obviously not an Xavier show or Richard Pitino show. I thought there was no chance of that because I thought, like everybody else, he was going to go to Villanova. I thought that would be a better job. They had a recent dynasty. Jay Wright is still mentoring. If you're going to do a basketball school, that's the ticket. It's a recruiting hotbed still in that area in terms of kids coming out of Philadelphia. And for him to go to Xavier, that then makes me wonder too, because Cody, here's what I would wonder. Was Ren Baker just all in on the Ross Hodge Express?
Yeah.
And everything you're saying, he was like blinders, McCollum, Iowa, I already knew this. No, he's very smart. He's even said this in last year's search. He could predict, and that's part of how he searches. We know how he searches so much now. He told us part of how he searches is he casts the net, he makes the calls, and then he starts predicting who's going to hire which guy so that he knows where he stands in the pecking order. Again, I think part of my rant here is he told us last year he knew his spot in the pecking order was not number one, and Michigan was one, and that's why he couldn't get Dusty May, the top coach. But he got the number two guy. And you could even argue he wasn't the number two job. You could argue Louisville, and yet he got the number two guy. And this year, you could argue he had the number one job, and he got like the number 7 guy. So like that's the perception issue. But maybe he had blinders on. He knew all of this was going to happen, but it was all Ross Hodge. But I would just wonder if Pitino was not going to Villanova, number one, Ren knows more than us. Did he know that Pitino was going to Xavier? And if Pitino was not going to Villanova, I think it's almost malpractice if you don't try, because you could try to beat out Xavier. If you're not going to beat Villanova, that's one thing with their NIL base. Xavier's a basketball school. I get wanting to go to a basketball school over a football school, but they're not the same as Villanova. Like, I think you could have competed. Did you try? Maybe he did. There were airplane pictures, but outside of that, there wasn't much legit reporting, and I was hesitant to even do it because I couldn't confirm that, and it maybe didn't happen. A lot of donors I was speaking to and sources were more saying they wanted him to do it. It was more want than rather than actually occurring. So did you try? How much did Ren Baker try and fail? And maybe it's not his fault in terms of the failing, regardless of the money. Or was he so set on Ross Hodge? That's what I think we need to know. Whether he'll be honest or not is a different story. But I think that is a legit question, is how long were you on Ross Hodge? And I do think it's fair as a follow-up. If you were on Ross Hodge early on, why didn't you try? When these dominoes did not fall the way predicted, like Pitino went where people did not think he would go, did you consider pivoting? Because I think you have to consider that. I mean, Richard Pitino obviously isn't, Rick Pitino, but he has the father lineage. He's going to recruit because of his dad. He just flat out will because of his last name. He's been a perennial tournament coach, even though he hasn't had a long run. And again, my major concern, and maybe it's really picking at straws here, maybe Ren doesn't care and thinks he'll get there. Your first NCAA tournament appearance should probably not be at West Virginia. That's what I'm saying. I just would prefer you to make one appearance. DeVries didn't win. He only won a first 4 game. But when you're in 3 times, I get losing as a mid-major, but in 3 times, that's different. I mean, Andy Toole's been in once, and he wasn't even a part of this because he didn't want to leave RMU. But that was laughed out when I just occasionally brought it up. And he's been in the tournament a couple times and should have been another time without COVID. Not to have one. I mean, I don't want him learning on the job. Like, you can't, I don't want this sold to me, and I don't want to hear this either. Say they make a tournament appearance and say they get embarrassed. And then, okay, one tournament appearance in year 1, it's still great. No one's going to be mad about that. But for his post-game press conference, what if he says, my first time here, I had to learn a lot, but I think I'll be better next year with all the knowledge I gained here. I'm going to then think in my mind, you should have learned at another job.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. And I mean, again, Ren knows everything I'm saying. I'm sure he would have predicted this reaction, but I think there's reason for fans to be reacting this way. And again, I want to be wrong. I want everyone to throw it back at me next year. I want to be wrong. No one's right 100% of the time. I want to be wrong. I am an alum. I don't want the program to be a laughing stock. I don't want to go from 19 wins to tournament snub to 12 wins. I do not. But that's a little bit where I'm concerned they are headed. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I looked it up while you were talking about it. So North Texas made the tournament once with McCaslin. So Hodge has been there once as an assistant coach. That's still not good. And I mean, I think the very first thing I said, Mike, was like, his resume isn't there, and you can't spin it. That's like that's the big thing. Is like there.
We have the guy who posted. Do you see that? Nathan literally is on the chat saying he started the Patino thing. Nathan literally Nathan.
Oh, good.
I'm glad you outed yourself. So Nathan Scott here in our chat posted the Patino picture, which did gain traction a little bit despite not much reporting. And kudos for you for posting that. But obviously that didn't go anywhere. Yeah, in all reality.
Yeah. One other thing in the chat, somebody said Hodge just stayed in the Sun Belt. North Texas is in the American. Just if we're covering our bases. No, it's hard to hard to know where major teams are, what conference they're in now, let alone the little guys.
100%. Yeah.
I forget what.
And no, I mean, I guess as we I guess this has been just the rant show, and I figured it was going to be, but to wrap things up, is there any other direction you want to go? I know that we can put this out there too, because some people are wondering. It does appear that he's going to coach his team the rest of the NIT, which would take you another week. I would imagine, and I would hope, because we might not get the press conference until after that to respect him, so it might be a week out until we get the presser. And Cody, maybe that's smart too, in a way, because maybe Ren's thinking he's very smart. Maybe he's thinking, you know what, coach, let Mike and others calm the hell down for 7 days. Come back in here and let's cooler heads have a press conference. Because if we had this tomorrow, I think the tone of it would be different than it would be 7 days from now. So I think that actually might be a positive to do that. But it appears he's going to coach, and I would hope and I would imagine he's going to be handling recruiting. He's going to have to double team the job. He's going to be working for 2 schools. If a recruit wants to come to WVU, he's going to have to get on the phone and sell it. I'd imagine he's doing all of that. And if, by the way, he's not, that's ridiculous. So I'd imagine he's doing that because the portal's open now.
Yeah. So I don't know. And it's funny that I'm going to bring him up 2 shows in a row. But I don't know. I remember watching Kevin Stallings' press conference at Pitt. And again, I hate to bring up Kevin Stallings 2 shows in a row.
It's like the worst coach in the country the last 20 years, maybe even more of our lifetime, honestly, anywhere. It's not even just picking at Pitt. That was such a bad tenure.
Yeah, but I remember watching his introductory press conference, because that was right. I'm not that old. That was right when I was in college, kind of getting into journalism. So I liked watching press conferences just to see what people asked. And that one has stuck. Like, I watched a ton, like all over the country, but that one sticks in my mind because, and I forget who Pitt's AD was at the time. He left shortly after that.
I believe it was Peterson still. I believe that was before.
Yes. That was an unbelievably defensive press conference where every question was basically like, why the heck would you hire this guy?
Yeah, it was like a losing coach from a bad program, right?
From Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt was so happy to get rid of him. But I just that's the vibe. That press conference has stuck in my mind of like, boy, what a train wreck, and obviously a terrible, like, god awful tenure, right? So like, I don't think this press conference will be like that because Hodge has one, right? And that's
And Ren's smart enough; he's better than Peterson. He's not going to do that.
I'll play devil's advocate one more time. It's not like this guy has his record's hovering around 500 at a mid-major, right? Like, he's won as the head coach. They won a ton with McCaslin, with him on staff.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not like this guy's a loser. Right?
No. Ren is going to 100% say he's a winner. It's going to be he says it in every press conference. This guy's a winner. I guarantee he's going to say he's a winner. And he is a winner at whatever level he's been. Yes.
And that's the one thing that is on his resume that isn't very long and isn't very impressive. But the one thing on his resume is everywhere he's gone a lot of times as assistant, but as a head coach, like
The
his
win percentage
teams,
was top of West Virginia's press release. It was right up there.
His teams have won,
Yeah.
and that's worth something, right? It's worth again. I'm grasping at straws.
I think again, and this, if Ross Hodge watches the show, him and I are going to obviously be starting off on a horrible foot here. And so, again, I want to give him a shot here. Again, I want him to do well. I haven't met the man yet. I hope he does well. Again, I would love him to call me out in 2 years in a press conference and say Mike was wrong. I'd be down with it. But what I think the other thing is, I don't think this reaction would exist. And maybe this would be, obviously in Ren Baker's dream, because he didn't want DeVries to leave. He wanted to power through with DeVries. And then if DeVries got elevated in 2 or 3 years, maybe then you call Ross Hodge. But maybe that's after 5 years at North Texas and an NCAA tournament appearance at least. If this was a year or two from now, and you just had North Texas as your experience as a head coach at this level, but you had 1 tournament appearance, or even if you didn't, but you maybe won the NIT, but it was 3 or 4 years of doing it on a regular basis where you were just close to getting the NCAA tournament, even if you don't get there, but it's consistent over more than 1 or 2 years. Okay, but not, how does he feel about the TikTok? We'll have to ask him. We'll get him that question and add some levity to it as well. How does he feel about TikTok? He's 44, so he's much younger than Rich Rod. Maybe he'll get in some TikTok dances, and maybe Rich Rod's daughter can actually have some fun with him on social media. But and I imagine the schedule, they'll have some fun whenever they release that. But I think if you were doing this a year or two from now, even if he's the same guy with the same resume, same personality, it would be better. It'd be more well received than how it is now. And also, watching some from him, there's a chance he also wins some fans over, Cody, maybe even media. He does have a fun-loving personality. He is very energetic. He's maybe more of a fun interview than Darren DeVries was, because I always heard stories about DeVries being, I always heard this. The DeVries dropped hot takes. People that covered him years ago, DeVries would drop a hot take. There wasn't one take all year. I mean, it was very boring, mundane press conferences. The intro, even a mundane tone of voice, even though he was saying good things about the program. Maybe there'd be more excitement there. I mean, if you want to go back to DeVries, Cody, there's things you can point to that almost leads you to believe this guy wasn't loving it here. He just wasn't loving it here. It didn't seem like maybe he fit. Maybe Ross Hodge is going to fit more. He even sounds like he's more of a West Virginian than DeVries in his tone. So maybe all of that will have the fans buying in. But again, the timing of this, the hunger of the fan base, what he's coming into, the recent years and what's happened, not only just basketball, but also football. They didn't win the announcement. McAfee didn't even say anything. I mean, that's a major thing. The man talks every WVU announcement. He has a comment. I haven't seen it yet, and it certainly wasn't on the show. Maybe it'll be there tomorrow. But
I think he had LeBron on today, so he probably
he's busy with LeBron. Obviously, it's a much bigger deal. But I mean, to be honest, Cody, that's another thing. If Ren Baker and McAfee obviously talk, and I'm not saying he was going to be on the McAfee show, I don't really buy when those things are always just assumed. But if they were hiring, if he was getting the Rich Rod equivalent here, or he was getting McCollum even, or he was getting DeVries last year, or he was getting, Richard Pitino, because Rick Pitino's been on McAfee so much, there's a chance Ren might have texted Pat and said, I know you got LeBron Wednesday. We'll wait till Thursday. It's better for you. We'll do the announcement. Then you drop a comment or two to help us out. I don't think he minds that McAfee was busy with LeBron and had that pre-taped and then could air it today. Ren, I think, was like, okay, this is not going to be received positively. Let's just avoid national media. We're going to add quotes in. We're going to do a graphic. We're going to wait until the middle of the day. We're going to make sure this is a book of an announcement here. Not much more than a tweet from the coach. I'll give a tweet. That's it. Dusty and Scott, can you help me out and throw me a solid? And we'll wait a week to do a presser. Let him coach and let the dust settle. I think Ren, there's a lot of things you can read in. I think Ren knew this was not going to be the Rich Rod type announcement. This is not going to be text your friend and you're reminiscing. This is going to be, are you still getting season tickets? And if they lose money going into the season, the only way to avoid it and get back to where you were financially is to win. And if you can't win and then you're losing money, I mean, I'd hate to see them get in the mess they were in 2-3 years ago, but bad hires can get you there. And again, I don't think donors are just going to crash the flooding. I even said this too. I don't think that's smart. I agree with people who are applying that that's just a bad way to be a donor because you're going to screw the program that you want to win. I agree. That's not smart to say I'm going to starve you financially because I'm mad about a coach. You cannot just do whatever the donors want and to starve the program. That is not a good thing. That is bad. That sucks if that's your mentality. But it's the world we're living in here. And I don't know who Ren Baker won over with the hire, except for, a minority of the fans seem like they're bought in. I've seen a couple media, not many. Some actually people are not even commenting that much on it at all. And I mean, I haven't had a positive private message yet. I mean,
that made me laugh. The world is not judged on the contents of the text messages you receive, Mike.
100%. That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. The world is not judged by my text messages. But I don't imagine my text messages are that different than other people's text messages right now. No, 100%. I think that's just the situation he's in. I think he knew he would get into that situation. And now you got to see how the roster looks. You got to see how the assistant coaches are going to move. I want everyone to keep track of this money. Got to keep track of this money because there's money left. Don't let it don't put it on the floor. Don't save it. Don't put it in the bank account. You got to win now in both of these two major sports. So the next 2 months, we're going to have all these answers, Cody. You don't even have to, again, dig too far. By June, you're going to know how mad you should be because you're going to have the spring basketball portal. You're going to have the staff announcement. You're going to have the football spring portal. You're going to have football recruiting wrapped up, even high school, but the end of the month, end of June. You'll know what went on with the supposed new money. And by that point, you're getting into full rev share. The new rules come into play, all of that. So, and then you go into the fall and there's kind of that month and a half where you're looking for excitement. You got to see what goes on in the rest of spring, going into summer. Again, I want it to work. I want to be wrong. I want it to work more than people who think I want it to work. I really, really do want it to work. I would like to be wrong, but it is just hard for this not to be the initial reaction. And that's just the truth of it here. And has nothing to do with anything else other than this is just the initial reaction. I don't think it's even an unpopular opinion. I think it's pretty much a normal opinion based on what most people are saying. But again, you got to give them some time and you got to let it simmer. So final thought, Cody, on this.
My final thought on this is I think the easy layup now for Ren is, and I've been talking about it a lot. Go ahead and lock up Mark Kellogg. Like the easy layup, everybody's gonna like it. Deserves it.
Maybe there's a job he's waiting for.
I don't know.
I'm not the only one who said that. I'm not now. But there's a job that could come open next year that maybe he's looking to go home. That's all I'm saying. I won't even say the job right now. So maybe he doesn't want to do that. Right? Yeah, you maybe could extend him and avoid that, and he deserves it anyway. I would imagine that'll happen. Yeah.
And I think that's I forget how long ago, but we talked about like certain layups like that. I think it was with Blaine Stewart, keeping Blaine Stewart. But so I think the next layup is give Mark like a couple-year extension or something, get some good press back out there before you do the press conference. And it's that's my last thought.
Yeah, and again, I mean, that might not appease everybody because they do care about men's more than women's basketball. That's just a fact. But that makes sense. I mean, that would also show, Cody, that you learn something from the DeVries situation and you're trying to play defense rather than just offense. I mean, you could argue that maybe they were not ready for how dirty it was going to get this past year. And they definitely lost the battle with Indiana. Maybe they would never win because that's a blue blood, but maybe you can at least, you're aware that he does this again without JJ. He's going to really be an attractive candidate. Give it to him now. He deserves it now. Anyone else would, and just try to play defense before you even get any rumors out there. Like just do it now. Yeah. Well, that definitely 100%.
Yeah. Somebody right after his press conference after they lost on Monday, somebody tweeted at me. He's like, "Did anybody ask the question?" And I was like, "What's the question?" They're like, "Is he coming back?" And I'm dumbfounded. I'm like, "There's not There's no rumors. There's not been a single rumor about this. But people are.
Well, they're scared because that's been the thing. Like, that's
Shy.
what I mean.
People are gun
Yeah,
shy.
people are
So
gun
that's
shy.
what I
Like,
mean.
guy
Like,
has too much success, right?
that's what I mean. So like that's why I think a layup for him is just an extension for him is just a layup because it just would hopefully, I don't know about this fan base, would hopefully assuage everybody's fears and just be a good day of press, really.
And my last thoughts on this, and kind of what I see Kelsey here, our last commenter that I'll get to, also said, so I'll kind of respond to it. I get the fear that, okay, if somebody does prove everybody wrong and wins right away and builds off the DeVries year and everything goes well and Ren is sitting there laughing, then you'll think a coach is going to leave or get plucked for somebody else. Maybe part of Ren's thinking is maybe he feels, okay, I have a good coach. Sure, his resume is not where McCollum's or Richard Pitino's or Medved's. He's not experienced. He's not done it at this level. He's not even been in the tournament. Maybe he's not those guys. And even if I believe my job is better, those schools have not been a national punchline for 3 years. Those schools have not seen a coach break up with them 1 year in. Those schools do not have a 900-plus win basketball Hall of Famer taint his legacy at the end. So I am the school that had that happen in a 2.5-year period. So I don't want to go through this again. I cannot have another coaching search next year more important, really, than even getting in the tournament. So I need to bring a guy in that maybe is just a little step below, but maybe he always was on the Ross Hodge Express because that guy won't do what fans think will happen. And yes, obviously, if Duke calls, maybe you can't turn that down, but it will not be handled as dirty. Maybe Ren trusts Ross Hodge more. That, for example, Cody, if he's in a tournament somewhere and, a blue blood calls him and send him a text or knocks on his hotel room and says, hey, talk to us because you're 7-0 and we never would have thought you'd win that way. And, we'd like to talk to you about our job. That he is friends with Ren Baker. They've known each other for years, that he at least would tip Ren off and say, this is happening. And, Ren they would be able to be more open, and I think it'd be avoidable. And I don't think Ross Hodge, having been in North Texas, the other end of this too is he's only had success for 2 years. He's not even been in the tournament. Most of the Indiana jobs of the world, that money or that prestige probably would be saying what we're saying and why our reaction is this way. We said that if Ross Hodge was hired in 2 years at WVU, it'd be received more positively. The Blue Bloods are probably saying, if you have a tournament a season with West Virginia, Ross Hodge, do it again. They're probably going to tell him 1 year at WVU and 2 years in North Texas is not enough for a blue blood to pluck you. This will be your first tournament appearance if you get there. Do it again, and then we'll talk in 2 years. I don't think 1 year of success, unless he somehow goes to the Final Four like Dusty May did at FAU, unless that happens, I don't think that'll be enough to get him plucked. I think they'll say you need to do it again because he's not done it that much. So this probably is a coach with more of a safeguard of that happening again. Like the odds of that happening again are probably at 0% at this point.
Yeah. And this is one of like the strongest opinions I have.
Okay.
Because I see a lot of people who bellyache and they're like, I don't want to hire a guy that's gonna win for 2 years and then leave. And that is such loser mentality to have about the team
you want to win rather than lose and keep a coach.
Well, the inverse is you don't win. And it's kind of like you were saying, Mike, like the inverse is you have an ugly girlfriend. right? And it's I hate that line of thinking because it's such loser mentality. Like I said, it's just like, and that's when people get hooked up is you have to bring Beeline back because Beeline won't leave. And it's like, come on. Like,
you mean the guy that left? You mean the guy that left? That's another thing. Like
so,
the guy that left, he left at one point, but yeah.
And it's just so like you, no matter the circumstance, you should want your team to win every single game it ever plays, right? And it's just
that's
you would not rather suck than have a coach that leaves. You would not. And I see you're not saying you're saying they'd, which sorry I got mad at you. I just said that. But nobody. If you would rather suck than have a coach leave, you are not a fan of that team.
it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It's a stupid thing to worry about. It's a stupid opinion to have. Like I said, this is maybe my strongest opinion. It's so stupid to be afraid of success. It's stupid.
I get the concern because of what happened in recent memory. I do get it for those WVU fans that are afraid of it, but to prefer to lose or be average,
Oh, God.
to prefer to lose or be average versus winning big and risking a coach leave is insane. I mean, that is just that is an insane opinion that you'd rather just lose or be average because then you don't have to worry about a coach leaving, because guess what? Nobody wants the coach and thinks your girlfriend is ugly at that point. Do you want an attractive girlfriend that you're happy and you're attracted to, that you're happy with, or do you want to be with an ugly person that nobody wants? That's just insane. So that I do.
I'm gonna respond. The one comment in chat says, "I want a snake oil salesman." Like, I mean this. I'm taking my glasses off. I mean this as nicely as this can come out. Like, get tougher, get thicker skin. Like, I'm sorry, Darren DeVries hurt your feelings. Like, I'm sorry he left, and you feel like he didn't handle it right, and he didn't say thank you, so your feelings are hurt. But come on, he's just a basketball coach. He didn't come to your house and spit in your face. Like, he had a good year, and he took a job that's paying him a bunch more money. Come on, people.
Yeah, I mean that is the difference, though, that I don't think Ross Hodge is ready for. This fan base, and even if they're pro sports fans as well, they are number one West Virginia, especially the people that are from that state. And they, to your example, Cody, there are a lot of fans that if you do WVU dirty, they do feel like you spit at them. Personally, it is a personal thing. Like, I've had to talk fans off the ledge in the last several years multiple times.
Yeah.
It does honestly feel like rooting for this program, this athletic department, is not good for the mental health of some people. It really feels that way. And this DeVries example is perfect part of that. So I do get that, but again, what you're also saying in your theme is correct, and it is the way I do want to end on. Do not be afraid of success. It is not better to lose or be average than to win big and risk losing losing the commodity that helped you win. You want to win big. If Ross Hodge takes the program to a Final Four next year and does the Dusty May thing and is the Cinderella story of the season that nobody saw coming, and then after that, Kentucky, Indiana, Duke, or whoever happens to call, and he calls Renan and says, "I love you. I'm not going to do the DeVries thing, but I can't turn down $8 million a year. I'm going to go there." The fan base should not say, "I regret going to the Final Four." Like, that would make no sense. You'd rather at least go. The example of missing the tournament and building with Ross Hodge versus an amazing season and then he's attractive to others, the building and missing is not better. So you want the special year if that could happen. I'm not predicting it, but that, you want that. You remember it and be like, "Oh, damn, this guy who's going to become a Hall of Famer, the first best year of his career was with us. So far, unfortunately the plaque will have someone else's name on it, but there's a Final Four banner up there." Like, you still want that versus not having it and then avoiding the search. With all that said, if I am covering a coaching search next year at the same time, I might be, mentally unstable with everybody else. But that is where we are going to close up shop here at this reaction show. Again, you can find Mountaineer Report everywhere you get your podcasts, as well as here on YouTube, and of course all of our coverage at WV Sports Now. This was another live edition here, kind of rant session reaction type show here for any of the podcast listeners. Cody Nespor, Mike Asti. And we will be back with more. Maybe we'll be able to, cooler heads will prevail, and I'll be able to calm down and give you, calmer show in the future as we react to this. And apparently we're going to have plenty of time before the press conference, but we'll see how the reaction continues in the days and weeks, and we'll see how the roster looks. And I want to give them time, and I want to be wrong. But again, right now, I think there's a lot of pressure, and I'm not sold right now.